here with Brandon Sanderson to talk about the Mistborn series, Stormlight Archive, and just, I mean, you're a prolific writer, man. Like, how do you write as much as you do? Everybody has their way of being able to just keep going. What is yours?
Right. Everyone says I'm very prolific. I don't see it that way. I just kind of do my job, right? I really like what I do. Writing energizes me rather than draining me. And so I'm a very consistent writer. I sit down in the morning and I do my work. I write my book. I'm really excited by it. And as soon as I finish one story, generally, the thing I need most is to start something brand new, something very different, to refresh me. And so because of this, my main projects, the way I take a break from them is by writing different books. And so I think it looks more productive than it is. I'm just very consistent.
It's interesting. We were talking about the fact that you were wearing a webcomic T-shirt and webcomics that we got into. What was your first webcomic?
So my first webcomic is very hard to figure out because it's so long ago now. I would say it was probably the old RPG World webcomic.
RPG World I think of especially just because it was, I remember playing Final Fantasy on the NES, and there's, I mean, that's basically what it is. It's just sort of ragging on that.
Yep.
Is that one of your, like, influences? Did you play video games that sort of influenced any of the fantasy stuff that you did at all?
So, I mean, I grew up the first generation that had a lot of video games. I remember when I was 12 years old, I got sent by my father to visit my uncle in Utah. I lived in Nebraska. It was my first time off on my own, right? Out, away, and he gave me $200. He said, take this money and buy your own food, right?
$200?
$200, right? But it's for a week. I was visiting for a week. And he's like, don't let your uncle pay for things. And so, but then of course, I was a 12-year-old boy. My uncle paid for everything. I couldn't get him to let me take any money. I'm like, I'm just gonna have to give this money back to my dad. He's like, no, you're not. And he took me to the mall and I bought a Nintendo. An original NES with the gold box Zelda. And that was like my first real gaming system. And so I played the Zelda games. I played all the Final Fantasies that came to the US, right? Which apparently is only some of them. But that Nintendo, I eventually sold and bought a Super Nintendo. And then we sold that and I bought a PlayStation. And so it's like the soul of my old original NES has moved through all my gaming systems as I sell them and buy new ones.
And now some of your work is going to be, it's been optioned, right?
My work has been optioned. This very consistently happens. I have learned not to hold my breath. I always option to people that I like, that I think will have a good chance of getting it made, but I also know that Hollywood, there's just a lot to do there to get a project rolling. I mean, I remember when we were waiting for a Spider-Man movie, and it took something like 15 years. And if it took 15 years to make a Spider-Man movie, then I don't know. I've just learned, don't hold your breath on your things. Keep your fingers crossed. DMG Entertainment owns the rights to the Cosmere, and they are working very hard to get it brought to the screen, but I have really no real exciting news, just little things happening behind the scenes here and there that are encouraging, but yeah.
That's still cool. Which one would you make a video game out of? Which one do you think is ripe for that?
I would probably pick Mistborn, just because the magic system there is the easiest to gamify. It kind of grew out of perhaps my gaming background. I try not to make the books feel gaming-y because I think that can get really boring. Things that work in one medium don't work in another.
For sure.
I always use Jackie Chan movies as an example there. Like, I can sit and watch Jackie Chan punch people in different ways for hours and always be entertained. But if you tried to put that in a book, right, then the book's just going to be boring. He kicked him, he punched him. He punched him in a really interesting way and things like that. So, but I do think Mistborn, just the setting, would work really well for some kind of city-based open world exploration fantasy game.
And I think all of the best writers are voracious readers. So what I would ask, just to close things out, is what's something that you've been reading right now that you would recommend to other people?
The best book I read last year was probably The Emerald Circus by Jane Yolen. Jane Yolen is a master of science fiction. She's one of the first writers that I read when I was young, and she is brilliant. And she released a new short story collection last fall, which has, I think, 2 Nebula Award winners in it, and it just blew me away. It was fantastic.
That's perfect. Thank you so much, Brandon.
My pleasure.